Good evening. I'd like to call to order the October 1st meeting of the Town Council. Madam Clerk?
Long stretch. Okay, so we have a complement of 7 of our 8 members present. So Councilor Obrey is absent, but I believe she's on her way.
Not this evening. She's not available this evening.
Okay.
Thank you.
Got the wrong message.
That's
you're
all
gonna
right.
have 7 then.
Yes, we'll have 7 temporarily. We will do the salute to the flag now. Would RTM member Washington please lead us in a salute to the flag? And I will step out of the way.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Representative Washington. Recognitions, awards, and memorials. I don't believe we have any this evening, so we are on to Roman numeral 4, public hearings. 2019-542-2, ordinance to amend ordinance 286 to reduce the size of the Planning and Zoning Commission public hearing. Madam Clerk.
Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held by the Groton Town Council on Tuesday, October 1st, to 6:30 p.m. in Community Room 1, Town Hall Annex, 134 Groton Long Point Road, Groton, Connecticut, on the ordinance introduced at the special Town Council meeting held on September 3rd, 2019, entitled Introduction of an Ordinance to Amend an Ordinance Number 286 to reduce the size of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Said ordinance would reduce the size from 7 regular members and 3 alternate members to 5 regular members and 3 alternate members for the Planning and Zoning Commission. The full ordinance is available on the town website and the town clerk's office. This was dated in Groton, Connecticut, 25th day of September 2019. Town clerk.
Thank you. And we have one person signed up to speak at the public hearing. It's Mr. Zell Stever.
Good evening. My name is Zell Stever. I live at 81 Main Street, Groton, Connecticut. Madam Mayor, Madam Clerk, members of the council, and town manager. I'd like to take this opportunity to basically support the proposal that's before you tonight to create go from a 7-member commission to a 5-member commission, as I think that given the complexity and the fact that we've had 2 commissions combined into one, it's going to be much easier for that new organization to really get its feet under the combination of these 2 very important sections of our local ordinance, the Planning and the Zoning Commission, and make it work effectively as it was intended to do. I did spend most of the last 2.5 years participating in the various workshops to produce that new zoning commission, and now it has to be integrated with the Planning Commission. So I'd like to thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Stever. That is the only person who signed up to speak for the public hearing. Is there anyone else present who would like to speak for the public hearing? Going once, going twice. Okay, that's the close of the public hearing at 6:37. We're on to item number 5, receipt of citizen petitions, comments, and concerns. And I have 3 people signed up to speak under citizens petitions. First is Neil Parfit, followed by Roseanne Katowski, please. I didn't read the thing.
Oh, good evening. I'm Neil Parfit at 26 Fort Hill Road. And my concern tonight is my house is right next to that little Mexican restaurant that has moved in next to Johnson's Hardware. And he's running a generator constantly. And it's disturbing my peace. And I can't enjoy my backyard. I can't enjoy my porch without listening to this. Even in my house, I'm being bombarded by this generator. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, and I think it's pretty unsightly over there too. So I'm hoping something can be done with this problem. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parfit. Roseanne Katowski, followed by Jean-Claude Amboise. Leave an extra. If you have 2 extra, that would be great. I can pass them down if you want. Thank you. Thanks. Okay.
Good evening. Roseanne Katowski, 24 Ann Avenue, RTM District 5. My comments tonight are regarding the Board of Ed off-budget grant money and the town attorney opinion outlining the approval process. I have passed out for your quick reference the town manager's April 5th, 2019 communication to the RTM and the town council regarding the opinion. Last January, RTM members asked the superintendent questions regarding the Board of Ed off-budget grant money. In March, the superintendent provided the RTM with a presentation of how the off-budget grant money is being spent. RTM members then asked the town manager to check with the town attorney to understand why the off-budget grant money did not follow the same approval process as other town of Groton grant money. On April 5th, the town manager provided the RTM and town council with an explanation of the town attorney opinion, which was handed to you. At the May and June RTM meetings, the superintendent was asked the status of how the Board of Ed is complying with the town attorney opinion. There was no answer. There were no RTM meetings in July and August. Again in September, the question came up at the RTM meeting. No answer. On September 12th, I sent an email to the Board of Ed chairman and copied all of you and everyone else I could think of that may be interested. Then on September 26, 2019, I received a response from the Board of Ed chairman, which stated, "This is where things are at. I sent a letter to both Sima and Patrice stating that I am awaiting to have a full discussion on this matter. Once we have this conversation, I will send a notice to both the RTM body and town council." While I appreciate the chair's response, it has been 5 months since the town attorney opinion was provided to all elected officials in the town. The fact that the Board of Ed is awaiting to have a full discussion in October is frustrating. I would like to request that the town council refer this issue to the town council education committee and to the joint town council RTM Board of Ed committee, or to any other committee that we have that could maybe take it up. I also plan to make a referral to the RTM education committee at the RTM October meeting. There is one more point I would like to make. I do not disagree with how the Board of Ed is spending the grant money. In fact, I was impressed with the March Board of Ed presentation to the RTM. The question I have always had regarding off-budget grant money is, what happens to the additional staff, equipment, programs, etc., when the grant ends? The answer seems to be that the additional staff, equipment, and programs will be folded into the budget. That is the area that needs more transparency from the Board of Ed in the future. It is important that the Board of Ed comply with charter language and the town attorney opinion regarding all expenditures, including off-budget grant money. This will provide the town council and RTM the same review process as all other expenditures in the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. And the last person who signed up is Jean-Claude Amboise.
Sorry, I'm battling a cold here. Good evening, town councilors, town manager, town clerk. My name is Jean-Claude Amboise, 169 Shenecosset Parkway in Groton. The marching band at Fitch High School has been practicing and working very hard. We are hosting the Sounds by the Sea home show on October 19th this year, right across the street at Robert E. Fitch High School. This large marching band competition is completely run by volunteers, the Fitch Music Department, as well as the Fitch Music Boosters. I and my wife are the chairs of the concessions committee this year, and we are expecting approximately about 800 people, 300 music artists, and 500 guests. The earnings that we generate from this showcase event will go towards the Fitch Boosters Department, and the earnings will then get reinvested in the talented youth that we have here. We're inviting you, as our community leaders, to join in helping us showcase the talented, driven students of our town. Please consider volunteering or donating to offset the substantial expenses to run the concession stand. We have a Groton spreadsheet Google page. You can also get in contact with us on Fitch Music Boosters on Facebook. Larry Grundy is our chair operating the whole Sounds by the Sea, so you can contact him as well as Andrew Lefebvre. So we appreciate your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that is everyone who's signed up to speak under citizens petitions. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak under citizens petitions this evening? I see a couple of people, so if you could come up to the microphone, state your name and address, and I'll record the information, please.
Good evening. My name is Beverly Turner. That's my maiden name. Beverly Washington. I live at 30 Pennsylvania Avenue, Groton, Connecticut. I'm also an RTM member representing District 2. I'd just like to encourage the town council to look into the Board of Education matter that Representative Katowski was talking about, and to urge the Board of Ed to comply with the town attorney's ruling. So, thank you.
Thank you. And I saw another hand. We're flush with RTM members this evening. Excellent. I love that.
Good evening. I'm Mike Whitney, 112 Deerfield Ridge Drive. I'm an RTM member from District 5 and also chair of the Education Committee. And I agree with what Roseanne and Beverly said, and I urge some resolution to this after we did get the town opinion some time ago. I think that increased transparency will help, and I think it'll help at the annual budget discussions because we always have this question about exactly what the grants are, when they came to be, and what's involved with them. And also, I'd like to say, I'd like to applaud the Board of Education for getting these grants over the years, these competitively awarded grants. They've done quite a bit for the education system, and I think having it viewed by the council as well as the RTM can only help increase awareness of those good efforts. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Okay, seeing none, that is the close of citizens' petitions. So at this point, we have responses to citizens' petitions, comments, and concerns. And before we start, I'd like to go directly to Mr. Burt so he can address Mr. Parfit's concerns, please.
Our blight officer, Tom Zannarini, has been working with the owner of that property next door to Mr. Parfit, as well as the health department has been involved. Counselor Franco also, myself, and then I also spoke with Ron Godet at the Groton Utilities because the generator, looking at is there any options or costs on getting electric run there. Tom Zannarini's having them clean a bunch of stuff up in the backyard. He's having them remove that larger trailer. And I understand the generator is attached mostly to that trailer. There's food storage in there. So Tom is giving them a little time to sell that trailer. It's for sale right now, a very limited time. But John Reiner's meeting tomorrow with Tom. Tom's going to be meeting with the owner again this week, and I'm requesting that we have the generator disconnected as quick as possible. We do have the option, if we need to, of having the police ticket for disturbing the peace. So,
Thank you, Mr. Burt.
so we're on it, yes.
Thank you very much.
And I'm very sympathetic, to the noise. So.
I just wanted to respond to Representative Katowski, Washington, and Whitney that on the 25th of September, I received an email from the chairperson of the Board of Education where she apologized for the delay in getting back to everybody. And she noted that the board has gotten a response from the board attorney, and as soon as they've met as a full board, she's going to be sending out a note. And she went on to thank everyone for their patience. Are there any other responses? Councilor Franco.
As John said, I have visited with Mr. Parfit, and I'm hoping that this can come to a quick resolution. And like I told you, you can always reach out to me if you have any other further issues. And I also am interested in what's going on with the Board of Ed grants as well. And thank you for bringing this to our attention. Thank you.
Councilor Baumgartner.
Manager Burt, is it at all possible if the council can get its hands on the written legal opinion as well?
Yes.
I understand
Yes,
this letter
that's
is
fine.
more of a summary.
Yeah, yes.
All right, thank you.
Any other responses? Counselor Heed?
Two items regarding the Board of Ed. Question to you, I guess, is what are next steps? What happens now that we're waiting for that meeting?
So Representative Katowski asked that it be referred. That's something that we can decide. I'm not sure why that's making that. I'm having microphone issues the past couple days. We can choose to take it up at the joint Town Council, RTM, Board of Ed City meeting that we have, the next one that we have. It's a monthly meeting. So we
Tomorrow.
can ask that
Tomorrow.
the representatives bring it to that meeting if the council would like. Is that, the council would like it to be conveyed to that group? Yes?
I would.
There you go.
All right.
Okay.
And then the second item regarding Sounds by the Sea marching band competition at Fitch High School. It's a great performance. A few of us went last year and encourage everybody to go. He said it's October 19th. I assume that's in the evening, but if you just Google Fitch Music Boosters, I'm sure it's on there.
Very good. Any other responses? Okay, seeing none, I would like to ask the council if they are okay with adjusting the agenda and moving item 2019-586 up to right now. If anyone objects, speak now. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and move us to 2019-586 Town Council vacancy. Consensus is there. Very good. Councilor Baumgartner, would you like to read that one? It's on page 36, please.
Resolution making appointment for town council vacancy. Whereas Councilor Atwater submitted his resignation to the town council effective September 15, 2019, and whereas the 2009 town charter, section 3.6, allows the town council to fill vacancies on the town council by appointment for the unexpired portion of the term, now therefore be it resolved that the Groton Town Council appoints Portia Bordelon to the current vacancy on the town council for the remainder of the term. So moved.
Second.
Moved by Baumgartner and seconded by Zepari. Is there discussion on this item? As I say most of the time at a council meeting, we're just doing the formal votes. The discussion has taken place in the COW, and I don't think we'd be at this point if we weren't all in favor. So I will call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So moved unanimously with 7 councilors. At this point, I would ask that Representative Bordelon, for the last time, come forward, and the town clerk can swear you in, please. If you accept this mission.
Here's my resignation from RTM. Okay. So if you would raise your right hand now, do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Connecticut, the Town Council Charter, and the Town Council rules and regulations of the town? I do. Excellent. Now,
And I'd like to take a 5-minute recess so Councilor Bordelon can settle in. Thank you. We are back from recess at 6:55, and we are at 8 councilors, including Councilor Bordelon. We are on to item number 7, consent calendar. Councilor Parker.
I make a motion to move the consent calendar.
Second. Moved by Parker, seconded by Franco. Any discussion on the 3 sets of minutes, September 3rd, September 10th, September 24th? Give everybody a chance to look them over. Any discussion on the minutes? Okay, seeing none, we will vote on the consent calendar. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So moved unanimously, 8-0-0. Communications and reports. Town councilors. Councilor Baumgartner.
Yes, I attended a very informative plastics reduction forum last week. I think it was standing room only. Looking forward to continuing to deliberate on our plastics reduction forum. And I think that ordinance, I should say, and the forum certainly informed, I think, our decision-making. Also attended a cleanup at Bluff Point, goes as where the Wild Things Eat event, and a ribbon cutting for 40 Thieves in the city of Groton.
Thank you. Counselor Parker.
I also attended the plastic reduction information session, and I also attended the Christopher Johns Memorial Silver 4th Annual Softball Tournament that was held by Community Speaks Out at Washington Park, and a well-attended event.
Thank you. Counselor Franco.
I attended the Plastic Reduction Education Forum, as well as I stopped by GOSA's Where the Wild Things Eat, and I had numerous communications with Groton residents and visits.
Counselor Heed.
I also attended the plastics reduction public education forum. That was really informative. A lot of people were there, as noted, standing room only. In addition, we had most of the council was there. There were RTM members. The city mayor was there. Heather Summers, Senator Summers was there. So just wanted to recognize everybody who attended.
Very good. Counselor Borderline.
Yes, I also attended the Plastic Reduction Public Education Forum, as well as attended the ribbon cutting ceremony at 40 Thieves.
Counselor Schmidt.
I did not attend the plastics conference because when I was ready to go out the door, I looked and the wind was blowing the rain so fiercely that I thought it would blow me away before I got to my car, and a wise person would stay home, and I did.
Wise.
Counselor Zafari.
I was out campaigning yesterday morning, and I met an interesting fellow who's a citizen of Groton. He's a Portuguese immigrant. He lives in a house, and I met him in front of his house. And his house is a very unassuming house, maybe 50 by 25 feet, 2 floors. Nothing special about the entryway, a concrete step going up, gravel driveway. And he was almost angry as he spoke about taxes. He said he's lived here for a while and the taxes have gone up and up and up, including the last tax billing. He hasn't seen the results of our work for the new budget yet. In any case, he pointed out that he pays $3,000 a year in property tax for his primary residence. He's an elderly man and on a fixed income. But one of the most interesting comments he made was that his family has a similar sized house in Portugal. It's bricks and mortar, and yet they pay 140 euros in property tax on that residence. Now, taxing systems in different parts of the country, different parts of the world are certainly different. They pay more in gasoline tax, there may be more wealth tax, heaven knows, but there is a significant difference there. And the thing that it pointed out to me is that this man is struggling under the burden of the property tax bill that we have. He's old, he has a fixed income, it's not going to get any higher, but our taxes seem to be rolling up all the time. I think we have to take this very seriously. I think whenever we consider anything, any new appropriation, we should make it a point to consider the taxpayer and where that money comes from. The way appropriations go, we consider a request from an agency or a department, and there is no mention about decreasing their expenditures in another area so that they can have this appropriation. There is no mention about what it's really going to cost the taxpayer. We just go ahead and appropriate that money and the taxes go up. It doesn't go up all at once. That's the other thing that's interesting. It goes up in little increments as we get careless about one little thing or another. And it's very important that we keep our mind on the goal. There are services that we have to provide, and we should provide quality services where they are necessary, and we are providing them. However, we should also be very careful that we're not squandering money. And I just wanted to bring that out. It's an experience I had on the road with Eric Geralt, is it, that used to be on the road? Well, I was on the road that yesterday morning and met this fellow, and he really brought it home to me. And I'd like to pass that on to my fellow councilors.
Thank you, Councilor Saperi. Let's see, I was at the Plastics Forum, and I wanted to thank the Conservation Commission. They did an amazing job. We gave them the task of putting together the education portion for the plastics ordinance, and they went above and beyond with the interactive exhibits and all the displays that they had for people, hands-on exhibits, and the educational aspect was amazing. So thank you, Conservation Commission, for taking care of that for us. Clerk of the Representative Town Meeting.
The RTM did meet last month. They didn't have any physical business, but they certainly filled a few hours of debate on issues that are dear to them. But they will be meeting in earnest October 9th at 7:30 at the Groton Senior Center because I expect they're going to have business.
Very good. Clerk of the Council.
Nothing to report.
And Town Manager. And I would ask that Mr. Burt provide an update this evening. The Town Council is in favor of coastal public access, and Mr. Burt is just going to give us an update as to what the town is doing with regard to coastal public access.
Sure.
Thank you.
A couple other quick things too.
Excellent. Thank you.
I was at the Plastics Reduction Forum, which was fantastic, very good. I was going to give a quick update on the Casino Road where we've had some standing water flooding issues. The Public Works Department did go out a couple weeks ago, cut back vegetation along the road to allow water to flow better. And by the end of this month, we're going to cut an area of pavement and replace it with an asphalt swale to help direct the water. So working with the neighbors there on that. So they so far pretty happy with that. We'll see what that does and go from there. And then I received a call from Lieutenant Governor Bysowicz yesterday. They're rotating from each community. They're doing Korean War veteran recognition ceremonies and Vietnam War ceremonies. Ours is going to be a Korean War one. So I worked with Mary Gardner, pulled up using the tax exemptions for veterans database. I think we have about 180 veterans in the database for the Korean War. So I'm working with Jimmy Tickey, her aide, there'll be a ceremony here. We'll find the appropriate venue, and that's forthcoming. So
Excellent.
And then coastal access, I was going to give you a bit of a background on that, kind of a timeline. This has been going on for a few years. Mr. Fitzgerald, who was mentioned in the article, who has tracked signage on the coastal access. And just so people are aware, it's never been one continuous trail. It's segments here and there. It's never been like all linked up all together. He worked with the former town manager, former council on the access. The Public Works in 2017 did replace some signage along the coastline there. He met with Mr. Fitzgerald after I came in, met with me. Planning staff were working with them, doing research. He had flagged about 11 or 12 signs he thought should be replaced. Planning could only find proof of 3 of them existing and or us having actual legal access to the properties. The biggest, I'd say the biggest holdup or the biggest issue when you look at the map is the powerhouse condos there. Apparently at some point in the past they may have given permission, but that's been years since it's been used and there's nothing in the records. But we continue to work on it. Met many times with Mr. Fitzgerald. Last end of July, we discussed that we can only prove 3 signs existed. We discussed with him having a study done. Well, if we're going to go and ask for access, we want to link everything up and have a nice big full trail. If we're going to ask for this, though, let's figure out exactly what we're asking. We want to have something on the ground like a blue marker, blue line, so you know exactly. Because it's really, I don't know who's been out there, but you can't tell what's what out there very easily. We want to have a trail you can follow, link everything up, and have better signage. So we agreed we'd have a study done. We thought it would take somewhere between 4 and 6 months to have done. Unfortunately, it took until this August, so it took about a year to get the study. But frankly, planning was tied up with our zoning rewrite, so we wouldn't have done much with it until this August anyhow, just from staff time. So we have that study now, just got it in August. We haven't got the final draft. We got a draft version, and the final should be coming into this week. We're continuing to work with Eric Callahan to see what our options are. I'd like to be able to negotiate the linking up of everything amicably, but we're seeing what our leverage is. Worst comes to worst, we're working on that still. And then Eric should be finishing his work in the next week or two, and then we'll meet with Powerhouse and the Art Museum, because they're the other one. They have a segmented trail on there, but it's not linked on each end, so we need to finish that segment there, so we'll be working with them. So, but there'll be more news coming out regularly in the next few weeks, few months. So.
Very good, thank you.
It's very much a priority, though. It
Yes.
has been.
Any department heads? Yes? Back to you, Madam Clerk. Back to you, Madam Clerk.
I am a department head. We have an election November 5th, and by requirement, by statute, we have absentee ballots available October 4th. So if you know that you're not going to be in town on November 5th, and there is a reason, it has to fit in with the criteria of the reasons to be absent, you can either download an application from the Secretary of State's website or come into our office and I can give you an application. But I can't issue the actual ballot until October 4th.
Very good, thank you. Yes, Mr. Burt.
I forgot to mention, we had a complaint about election signs being in the right-of-ways for both the state and the town. That's a regular thing. Tom Zanarini, also a blight officer, he's going to be going out this week to check that out to see. We got to make sure it's on private property, not in the right-of-way. If we do, and typically, depending on the situation, Tom might either have the the sign to be removed, which if that happens, it goes to our Public Works Department, and they just hold it for people to get. But otherwise, depending on the circumstance, he may send a letter to the property owner saying, hey, move this back. So John's gonna, once Tom finishes going out there, he's supposed to start it today, John Reiner will give me an update. And he's also putting something together to let people know the rules so we can send it out to each party and have everyone aware.
Very good, thank you.
I'll keep you updated.
Excellent. Item from numeral 9, nothing from Committee of the Whole, nothing from Temporary Rules, Personnel and Appointments. Do you have a report, Councilor Heed? Or Chairman Heed?
We have a motion tonight.
Okay.
Councilor Schmidt, Councilors Perry and myself met on September 17th, and we recommended for appointment Kevin Fiftel to the Planning and Zoning Commission. We had an extensive interview. He's got a very impressive resume, and we unanimously endorse him.
Excellent. And Chairman Heed for Rules as well. Do you have a report?
We met, this is a more interesting one. We met on, to clarify the portion of the citizens petitions where a counselor is able to ask a question if there's like something that needs to be clarified. And actually, I wanted to let you know, the way it normally works, if you have a point of order, you would say it during the meeting, and we would discuss it at that time. Instead, I received 2 emails, and then I would be the third person to put it on for discussion at the Rules Committee, at which point we voted to change the rule. But that could have just been a point of order discussion that takes place right at the council. And according to Robert's rules, for it to be point of order as opposed to a referral to the committee, you would just make it at that time. You couldn't make it at a later time. So just like an educational notice to all of you, if you have a question about the rules or how something's happening, just make a point of order and we'll discuss it immediately.
Very good. All right, we are on to Roman numeral 10, new business, and we are on 2019-425-1, credit card processing for town departments on page 19, but I would like to draw your attention. Mr. Burt left a slight revision. There's just some subtle changes in the language at everybody's place.
So it was out to everybody on Friday.
Thank you. And it went out to everybody on Friday, but he left a paper copy at your place. Do you have it?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, because there's a copy from Councilor Aubry. All right, Councilor Franco, please.
Make a resolution authorizing the town staff to accept credit cards as an authorized payment method. Whereas the Government Finance Officer Association, GFOA, has identified potential benefits for government entities to and accepting credit payment cards, including enhanced customer service and convenience, increased certainty of collection, oh my gosh, I cannot read tonight. Accelerated payments, and the availability of funds, improved audit trail, reduced cashiering cost, improved overall cash flow and forecasting, lessened delinquencies, reduced return check processing cost, and reduced collection cost. And whereas accepting credit cards is necessary to conduct business online, and whereas the town of Groton is in the midst of implementing software that has integrated credit card processing available, and whereas the town of Groton has the option of collecting an additional fee to cover the cost of processing credit cards from citizens opting to use credit cards as a form of payment, and whereas the tax division will be excluded since it already has a method of accepting credit cards via a third-party vendor, now therefore be resolved that the Groton Town Council authorizes credit cards as an acceptable form of payment using merchant processing accounts, and approves that revenues and expenses related to credit card processing may be included in the annual budget. I so move.
Second.
Moved by Franco and seconded by Heed.
That was a rough one.
We've had extensive discussion in COW on this item, so unless there's anything new, I will call for a vote. All those in favor of 2019-425 credit card processing for town departments, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So moved unanimously. 2019-524-1 school closure policy on page 20, please. Counselor Heed.
Make a motion for a resolution adopting the school closure policy. Whereas the town council desires to have a policy in place to enact procedures when the Board of Education considers closure of a school facility, and whereas a group was formed consisting of the school superintendent, town mayor, town manager, planning commission representative, Board of Education president, planning and development director, and an RTM representative, and whereas this group produced the draft school closure policy and has recommended it to the town council for adoption, and whereas the town council, through their committee of the whole, did recommend approval of the policy at their August 27th, 2019 regular meeting, now therefore be it resolved that the town council adopts the school closure policy. I so move.
Second.
Moved by Heed and seconded by Zepari. Discussion on this item. I would just like to note this committee, former Representative Bordelon served as a member of this committee and when we worked on drafting this item. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of 2019-524 school closure policy, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention, so moved unanimously. Okay, so we are on 2019-531-1, which is listed as clarification of citizens' concerns and responses to citizens' concerns. This is on page 24 in the packet. You want to, Councilor Bordelon?
I'll read it.
Thank you.
I make a motion, resolution adopting the changes to the rules of procedures to govern the 31st Town Council. Whereas the Town Council Rules and Procedures Committee met on August 27, 2019. And whereas the Chairman Heed introduced and discussed changes to be made to Rule 11, Citizens Petitions, deleting except for questions necessary to clarify the citizen's intent. And Rule 11, Citizens Petitions C, inserting a new rule, councilors will reserve questions and responses to citizens' petitions until responses to citizens' petitions, and renumbering current rule number 11C to now be Rule 11D, and whereas the Rule and Procedures Committee approved the changes at said meeting, now therefore so be it resolved, that the Town Committee approve the changes made to Rule 11, Citizens Petition B, deleting except for the question necessary to clarify the citizen's intent. And the Rule 11, Citizens Petitions C, inserting new rule, councilors will reserve questions and responses to citizens petition until responses to citizens petitions, and renumbering current rule number 11C to now be Rule 11D. I so move.
Moved by Bordelon and seconded by, was that Baumgartner? Baumgartner? Okay. Discussion? Counselor Heed?
Yeah, I'll just note that this was basically a referral to the Rules Committee. The way it started was, we had a discussion on the issue and what we thought the rule meant. But then Town Clerk Betsy McKesher explained the historical background of why you have a citizen's petition and a responses to citizen petitions as a way to prevent unnecessary or uncontrolled back and forth. And so it went on for quite a while. It was a long discussion, but it seemed like a natural progression to move from the rule that we had to the rule that is being recommended. So that being said, I kind of like the rule the way it's written right now. If you have a quick question, like for example, where is 26 Fort Hill Road? That address was given tonight. Is that across from Midtown Pizza or the Baptist Church? You can ask that question. It's just not supposed to be abused, so it's not the beginning of an interrogation or back and forth or give the speaker an extra 5 minutes. It's just a simple question, simple answer. And in theory, there would only be one of us making that question. It's not like one person asks a question, then we all suddenly start asking. And generally, that's not the practice. The practice is that no questions are asked. You wait until your responses and you go from there. But I think when I was on the city council, it was either once or twice I remember a question being asked, and it was just like that. It was one person had one question and it was done. My personal preference would be not to restrict that kind of back and forth from happening. I think it would be up to the mayor to control the meeting. So anyways, a motion was made and it passed, but I just want to advise you of the background of the meeting, the discussion.
So for clarification, it passed out of committee as it is in the rules?
Correct.
As in our agenda tonight? Okay. Counselor Franco?
So I was one of the persons that sent you an email, and what I had asked for was clarification on what the rules meant, as it states in the part of receipt of citizens' petitions, comments, and concerns. It states councilors may only ask questions in order to clarify the speaker's presentation and can respond during the responses to citizens' petition portion of the meeting. So my question was to clarify, can a town councilor simply clarify something while the person is still up at the podium instead of having to come back to the podium at a later, during responses time and answer my clarification? Because in the response time, that's when you're supposed to basically respond and not have a dialogue with anybody. So it's not to have a debate or a conversation, the clarification that I was asking for. And I do recall the night that this did happen, because the person came up to the podium during response time and I clarified a question, another counselor did start having a conversation with the person. So I don't think that regardless of where you put it, it's going to alleviate that unless the counselors know the rules. So I am just surprised that the rule was changed when basically it was just asking for a clarification to go forward so I would know exactly how this would work. I didn't know that there was going to be a rule change, and that's not what I was requesting.
Counselor Bordelon?
Thank you, Mayor. I really don't feel comfortable with this rule change based on how it's written and how we got here. I'm a firm believer in transparency and having the dialogue be open and being able to be, accessible to the public. Therefore, we are all human and we have our own issues that we bring to the table. And at times you do need clarification. I need clarification where no one's perfect. And I feel by allowing only one counselor to make a clarification remark to suffice for everybody is not enough, because it might draw another one. Based on the remarks that Rachel just made, and after reviewing this, and I was in attendance or watching at home regarding this vote that went down in the night that this all happened, and I think it's not the right move that I'd want to take, and I'd like to see this relooked at.
Just to clarify, the rule doesn't say anything about just one question being allowed to be asked.
I was referencing Conrad Heed and his response to at the city that they made a rule of only one, so I didn't want to go in that
That's
direction.
not, yeah, that's
Okay.
not our things.
Yeah.
And please refer to Counselor Franco, not by first name, please.
I'm
Keep it
sorry.
formal. That's
Sorry.
fine.
Yeah.
Counselor Heed.
Actually, what I was saying is there really aren't a whole lot of questions to the person who's making the presentation. On the city council, there were 1 or 2 times where one person asked a single question.
Okay.
That's all I was saying. And, and that actually is a great point, because in the discussion it became, well, if there's one person who asks a question, a point of clarification, what about 2 points of clarification? What about 3? What about 4? Then it becomes a little bit uncontrollable if you have all 9 counselors or 40 RTM members or something going through the same process. And so that was the reasoning. But I'll go back again to I like having the flexibility of asking one question and putting it on the mayor. Bless your heart. But to manage the meeting and take the heat for putting it into it. And that being said, also to respond to Councilor Franco, I agree. I understood it as a point of order referral, which unfortunately wasn't made till after the meeting, and according to Robert's rules, that would have to be done during the meeting. But the referral that went to the committee was to look at this, and so that's what the committee did. They looked at this and we debated it, and there were 3 opinions, and I was in the minority basically, but it went forward. So.
Okay, so we've had people speak twice already. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? And the rule for this is, do we speak? Yeah, this is good. We're good. Anyone else would like to speak before I recognize again? Councilor Bordelon.
Once again, for transparency purposes, I think clarification questions, as many times as needed, should be allowed to the public for, responses. People are nervous about standing up there to speak. Not everybody, the purpose is to encourage people to come out to speak, and your clarification might not be my clarification. Therefore, I will not support this.
So while I agree with you that we want to encourage the public to come out and speak, I agree with this, and I will be supporting this motion because I feel that not everyone is as comfortable speaking publicly as all of us are. And when they come out to speak, I feel that they should have their time uninterrupted, and we could make a note and we should wait until everyone has spoken. And then when everyone has had a chance to speak, I feel then we could ask whatever questions we need to ask. Councilor Baumgartner.
Well, on my time on the council, I don't recall the council ever interrupting a public speaker halfway through their remarks. I do think that's quite different, though, than at the end of their remarks, a councilor being afforded the opportunity to simply clarify a question. So in that respect, do these rules address kind of those nuances? I'm reading through the rules now, but perhaps I should levy that question to Councilor Heed.
Councilor Heed.
I would say it's understood as after, the speaker has 5 minutes to make a petition, after which a councilor may ask a question for a point of clarification. I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm struggling to get that out. It's very simple. So it's not during the presentation. If you start asking during the presentation, that's the whole point for the rules based around citizens petitions. Back as we received the history during the meeting, it would be a back and forth. Councilors would end up talking with the person who they know who's making the petitions about fishing over the weekend or something like that. It just became, it was a no holds barred conversation. So to sort of tighten it up, make sure that citizens are able to make a petition, make sure that we're able to hear them, and make sure everything is understood clearly before we then go on to citizens petitions, where we can ask for more information, ask for supporting documents, make referrals or comments. So that's kind of how I understand it.
When you think about the mechanics of the meeting, if there are 20 people to speak afterwards, it may be difficult to remember actually, what was being discussed. I mean, in a night where it could be controversial. I mean, it's happened where we've had 20 plus 25 citizens come in and speak with us.
Counselor Schmidt.
I feel that when there is a situation where you need a point of clarification, that is when it would be important to be able to speak out and ask that question. It is not to be a conversation, and clearly from the wording of the rulings, the rules that we are under, that would only be a point of clarification and not a discussion item. And so that any discussion would be stopped immediately so that that person could proceed. I don't think it needs changing.
So we haven't heard from Counselors Perry or Parker. I'd like to give them the floor if they'd like to speak. Counselors Perry?
We spoke about this at Committee of the Whole, and it seemed like we were all in favor at that time. Now people have changed their minds. I don't think it makes a whole lot of difference which way we do it. I think that there are pros and cons for both. The fact is that it's awfully hard when some people come up with statements that are antagonistic and generally offensive. When we question for a point of clarification, to not point out the nature of their speech to start with. We have had situations where there has been dialogue between a person and a member of the council, and the mayor has even cut it short because it got inappropriate. Things get heated, and there are people that come up with ideas and with an agenda that, as I said, are antagonistic, and it's hard to say, okay, we're only going to ask for one point of clarification without getting into the substance of the problem. I am not married to either way. We had it going one way, and it was referred to the Rules Committee because people were unhappy with it. And the Rules Committee made the current change, and that's being proposed now and was approved by the Committee of the Whole and brought forward to the council, and now we want to go back. I would just like to get the issue settled and go on and conduct business.
Counselor Parker and then Franco.
I was one of the ones that said to make a change. I want the sentences clear cut, to shorten to the point, to say, this is it. Sometimes we have, like you said, 20 to 25 people. I take notes when I'm doing this. And sometimes we can go back and then we can announce it to the people that, yes, we heard you, we can research it, and we can announce it on TV. We're here almost every Tuesday, well, except for the third Tuesday. But we can say something and say, hey, we researched it, we heard your petition, this is what we've done. On the same token, there are other people out there who want to move forward. So my question was, if we ask a clarified question, does that add to their 5 minutes? Then if each of us has a clarifying question of that one person, same person that's out there, does that get extra time to do that? Because are we doing this at the end? Are we stopping them in the middle? Are we doing this? Are we doing that? And none of us have had a clear cut direction on it. So my thought was, just wait to ask the questions, because there's 9 of us, one person can ask that one person question and a question and a question and a question, and it could go more than 5 minutes of their time. So where is the cutoff?
Counselor Franco.
So I don't think anybody was unhappy. The email that I sent said I would like clarification. I didn't say I was unhappy. I said I would like clarification for future knowledge. That's all I asked for. I didn't ask for anything to be changed. I didn't say I was unhappy with anything. I simply said I wanted clarification. And it states in here
The current way.
the current way that prior to a change says, town councilors will only ask questions in order to clarify the speaker's presentation and can respond during the responses. So I think it's sort of separate that during a citizen petition, that if we have 20 people here and the person that comes up the first time and speaks, after they speak, and I have a question to clarify exactly what they were saying because I don't understand what they're saying, and then they leave, I have no opportunity to ask them what they meant by what they were trying to convey to me. So that was what I was trying to get across. I didn't think it had to become an issue of such when all I asked for was a clarification of the rule. And I would have used that clarification going forward.
Okay, we have a lot of people that wish to speak, but the clerk, I believe, wanted to add something?
Yeah, I just, past knowledge of many counselors, when someone gets up to speak under citizens petitions, often will miss the address or even their name. They'll just start speaking. And so that's why this is in there, so you can ask for clarification. What did you say your name was? What is your address? If you remove it, then we won't have that option.
We have Councilor Parker, Baumgardner, and Bordelon.
As Councilor Heath stated, this actually didn't come correctly to us. It should have been brought either to the mayor's attention, then forwarded to us. Should have been 3 people to say something. And if you want, I can say this now and say that it comes back to us and we re-review it. I don't know if anybody wants to do it that way. We can take a look at it again. We're voting on it tonight. You can say nay or yay.
Councilor Baumgardner and then Bordelon.
I'd just like to respectfully remind the council that these aren't real issues. The public just wants to be heard. And so I think just want to put that out there.
Councilor Bordelon.
Thank you. Just in reference to waiting to the entire end of the that section, it might make sense to consider waiting until that individual, as you stated, some speakers may not be comfortable at a podium publicly. Therefore, maybe clarification should come at the end of that person's allotted time for clarification, and that would not be an interruption. I can speak for myself, 20 people that you go through, you can take a lot of notes, but I think to give them the full attention and fairness and clarification, not only to the people that may leave that come to speak, but also for clarification of those who watch at home. Having it happen in live time makes most sense to me. So.
Okay, so everyone has spoken at least once on this item. So,
It doesn't matter so much, but
Councilor Heath.
do make it at the end of the 5 minutes
Okay.
after the person speaks. That's when questions are asked.
Thank you. So everyone has had their piece, and I believe they've had a chance to say everything they'd like. So I will call for a vote on 2019-531, clarification of citizens' concerns and responses to citizens' concerns. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, so Parker, Granatowski, Zepari. All those opposed, please raise your hand. Baumgardner, Franco, Heed, Bordelon, and Schmidt. And abstentions? Okay, so that motion fails. 3 in favor, 5 opposed, and 0 abstentions. Do you have the names, Madam Clerk? Very good. So this motion fails. We are on to Port Security Grant on page 33. And this is Councilor Schmidt.
A resolution authorizing a port security grant, whereas the Groton Town Police Department has applied for and received a $25,000 grant from the Federal Emergency Management Agency's Port Security Grant Program, the PSGP, and whereas this funding will be used to replace and install the failed collar, bow cover, and closed cell foam on the police department's 27-foot safe boat at a cost of $9,722 to replace the aging electronics equipment to match the Coast Guard's Raymarine Axiom 12 RVX Navionics with installation at a cost of $12,400 and the remaining $2,878 will be applied toward training at the American Boat School LLC U.S. Coast Guard Captain's Course. And whereas these repairs, upgrades will allow Groton Town to be prepared and equipped to participate year-round in coordinated efforts of port security, including planned events and jurisdictional patrols of Long Island Sound, Port of New London Harbor, and adjacent local coastal waterways. Now therefore be it resolved that the Groton Town Police may accept the $25,000 in grant funding from the Federal Emergency Management Agency's Port Security Grant Program, the PSGP. I so move.
Second.
Moved by Schmidt and seconded by Baumgartner. Any discussion on the Port Security Grant Program? Seeing none, all those in favor of 2019-582 Port Security Grant Program, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So moved unanimously with 8 counselors. We are on to 2019-584-1 Groton Ambulance Building Automatic Transfer Switch on page 34. Counselor Zepari, please.
Resolution for the fiscal year ending 2020 general contingency transfer. Whereas Groton Ambulance Association provides emergency medical services to the town of Groton, and whereas the town of Groton and Groton Ambulance Association did originally enter into a lease on August 28, 1980, where the town leased to the association town-owned land at 217 Newton Road, Groton, and whereas the town of Groton did approve a lease renewal on November 7, 2018, whereas the town of Groton is responsible for maintenance, repair, and replacement of certain items, and whereas an automatic transfer switch is desired to be purchased for the facility's generator, and whereas such switch is a responsibility of the town of Groton, now therefore be it resolved that $8,645 is transferred from the general fund contingency fund function to the general fund public works function for installation of an automatic transfer switch for the Groton Ambulance Building generator. It's moved.
It's moved.
Second.
Seconded by Schmidt. Moved by Zepari and seconded by Schmidt. All right, and again, we discussed this in COW, but Counselor Baumgartner?
Well, as I stated last week, I strongly support this resolution. It's my hope, though, that in the future, both our town, the town government, and the Groton ambulance team can work together to replace that generator. I know it's very important for public safety, and it behooves the town to help support that, especially when it comes down to funding, and potentially, as we talked about, and as we're thinking about resiliency, maybe there's a kind of a sustainability component to it as well. Thank you for all that you do, and looking forward to seeing it pass.
Very good. Counselor Bordelon?
I just want to, for clarification purposes from the CAL meeting, the original thing that came forward, the Groton ambulance was willing to pay for half of this.
Correct.
And that amount was half of this 8,000?
Correct.
Okay. I just think it's important if an organization that is, part of the community that's coming forward, and the original action was to pay for half, I feel we should support that, considering there is a generator coming down the road, and it might only be $4,000, but we're looking at the whole package. So I'd like to make a motion, if possible, to move, or I'm not sure on the clarification, so I may need help. The options are to vote against this, or can something go to the table to go back to the original number?
Let me think. You certainly can vote against this.
Yep.
You could. You could. Yes. Well, we need clarification on what you would like to do.
I'd like to amend the amount.
So.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to amend or go back to the original amount of, I don't have the number in front of me. It would be 1/2 of that total.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to commit that to writing for me, please. That way we can give it, unless the clerk is, we have the clerk this
Yeah, we
evening.
do.
Would you commit it to writing, please, Madam Clerk?
And that, my reason behind that was, when this originally came before,
Well,
oh,
Madam Clerk, are you going to commit that to writing as she states it out loud? Okay, can you please state your motion, please, all in one?
okay. I'd like to make a motion to amend the amount that's present of $8,645 back to the original amount that was stated at the Cal meeting, that the Groton Ambulance agreed to pay half of the total amount of this switch replacement.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Bordelon, seconded by Zepari. And Madam Clerk, are you good? Do you want to read that back for everybody?
Not really, no. I will get it perfect. It is a half amount. What I want to do is get the exact amount.
It's, the number is
Counselor Heed?
$4,322.50.
Is that the original, from the original motion?
That was half.
Half of this.
A motion is to amend the amount to the original request, which is half, but the half. So I'm going to change that to $4,322.50.
Counselor Bordelon, is that your motion?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so that was moved by Bordelon and seconded by Zepari. So we have an amendment on the floor. Discussion on the amendment. I'm sorry?
My reason for that amendment is originally, when it came before the town council, it stated that the Groton Ambulance had and was willing to pay for the 50% of the cost. Therefore, I think that we take that offer.
Counselor Heed.
I originally supported the original offer as well. My understanding is, first of all, thank you very much to the ambulance company. You all do amazing work, and there's no question that I support you. But the lease specifically says that we are responsible for the items in the building, including the generator. So I understand there's that, but if you go back to the original offer, they approached us, they offered to do it half and half because otherwise they would have to wait until the CIP into, during the budget season. And to Councilor Zepari's point, I think that one of the ways that you control expenses in town is you limit these kind of expenditures during the year and you put it all in the budget, once a year. That to me is the right process and the right way to do it. And unless there's something exceptional, I don't think you go against it. So I think we should be paying for the whole thing, but maybe during the budget season we do something else with that money. Just as it's not a really clear argument for or against it, but I just think that on principle that was the original offer, and that's what should be held.
Councilor
So I'll
Baumgart.
support this.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
I think there is a clear argument against it. The liability the town faces if that building goes out of power again and they receive a call and no one's there to answer because the power's out. They're very lucky, and that time when I believe it was a crane, there was a crane malfunction and which resulted in the building going out of power for some time. We need to do everything in our power to ensure that the citizens are safe. And so I'm willing to pay a premium for that. And for that reason, I support the amount that's on the table, or was currently on the table this evening.
And I'm just going to jump in here. I support the motion, the original motion that was on the floor. The last whereas says the switch is the responsibility of the town of Groton, and I concur with Councilor Baumgartner as far as liability, and we need to make sure that the ambulance service is able to do their job by receiving calls and responding. Councilor Zepari.
I have several problems with the motion.
Which motion, Councilor Zepari?
The original motion,
Okay.
and I'm acquiescing by supporting the amendment. But my problems with the motion is, first of all, no one can doubt that the Groton Ambulance provides an essential service to the people of the town of Groton. Okay? Can't take it away from them. Their competence, their compassion is really top-notch. But going on to this, now they are a private, non-for-profit organization. They have their own board of directors. They make their own decisions on their expenditures and on their collections. they charge a substantial fee for each service that they deliver. So they have a cash flow. At this particular time, they have over $422,000 in the bank, and they're up to date on their expenses. They've paid their personnel, and they've paid for everything. The second thing that strikes me is that we are already subsidizing this organization. They supposedly have a lease on the garage that they use in Newtown Road, and they pay $1 a month, $1 a year for that lease. That is a huge subsidy that the town of Groton is giving them. Additionally, at each year, last year and the years coming, we have given them a grant of $52,000. This is money in addition to the money that they take in. So those are things that concern me. Additionally, there's another ambulance company in the town of Groton. They have their own garage, and they never ask us for a penny. They're able to meet their expenses. So it just strikes me as strange. When they have more than enough money to cover this, and they're asking us to pay for it for them. And the final thing is, I think the argument that we are responsible for the maintenance of the generator, and therefore we should install a new automatic switch, doesn't hold water. When they took over the premises where they are now, there was a generator, and we're responsible for maintaining the generator. But that generator never had an automatic switch. What they're seeking now is a new piece of equipment. And the new piece of equipment and the requirement for an automatic generator is so that people who are on duty and are being paid for being on duty can sleep through the night. Usually when you're on duty for an emergency service, someone is up and minding the store. Someone hears the phone. When I was covering emergency rooms at hospitals, I used to go to sleep when there was no activity in the hospital, but there was always a nurse at the desk and a receptionist. And it's not necessary to have an automatic switch for the generator. It would be much cheaper to have a cell phone that's designated for a particular purpose, plugged in and charging at all times there, so that if the generator goes down and they can't be reached because the generator is down, the dispatcher can call that cell phone. They don't have to call someone's private cell phone. They could have, and that would be far cheaper than this automatic switch. So all these things considered, I would go back to the original agreement, because our town manager had dealt with the ambulance company, and both had agreed that each would pay half for this switch. And to me, that sounds like a deal was made. There was a bargaining, and a deal was made, and it's appropriate to support that deal. But I don't think that we should be spontaneously and without request donating an additional $4,000+ to the ambulance company from the taxpayers' pockets. I think of that old man that I spoke with yesterday morning. That's coming out of his pocket. And so I think we should be responsible and vote for Councilor Bordelon's amendment.
Counselor Parker and then Bordelon.
Just a clarification, both ambulances do come to us for money. And I believe it says, correct me if I'm wrong, that it is in the lease agreement that certain, not appliances, certain equipment is under the town's responsibility. 2, I believe that Groton Ambulance has been doing some upgrades within the building, if I'm remembering correctly.
We've done some cost sharing on upgrades.
Cost sharing on upgrades, but the equipment is something different?
And then money to wire out something too. And one other point of clarification, I just pulled out the lease. It's really optional on whether we do that type of equipment. It's not required. It says we may choose to. But they are paying, I think today starts the $1,000 up, at least, by the way, they're not paying $1 anymore. We're trying to slowly stagger it up, if you remember.
Counselor Parker, are you finished, or do you need to finish?
Need to finish.
Please.
So, public safety is paramount, paramount. So if they don't have a switch, they don't have a cell phone, they have to make sure that they told the 911 service that who's on, make sure they have all their cell phones, or get, like you said, try to get a department cell phone and have it charged and available. If I'm trying to remember, we just did something for the town PD for the UPS when the power went out and they lost it. And we did a special contingency. That was a whole lot more than what we're doing right now. So if you can remember, is that what we did for the PD when they lost power up there? So we jumped on doing that, but we can't jump on the ambulance service. What if the fire department came to us and asked for that? I'm concerned that I'll let it go.
Just, Mr. Burt, just to clarify, the last whereas says, whereas such switch is a responsibility of the town of Groton. Is that incorrect?
That is incorrect. It's our choice.
So the resolution is not correct.
Right, I would switch that.
Counselor Bordelon.
Just to be clear, I fully support, I work in the medical field myself, and I understand the response, and I actually have a relative that works at an ambulance company. But what I'm trying to get at is looking at the numbers and the obligations. If somebody comes to you and says, we have the funds available to support this, so they're still able to do it, it's not hurting them to pay the amount that they came forward with, and the town council is willing to put in the other 50% to make this happen. This type of switch did not exist in the building when they took on the lease, and I understand that. So it's an upgrade and a modification that they would want. If a renter was to rent a building and I come up with a certain circuit, if I want to buy a new wash machine or dryer and it has the newer switch, I would have to install that. That would be my obligation. And so all I'm asking is that if we do subsidize them and give them some money per year, I know it's not a ton, but it's something. The rent was down to $1 for some time, and it's now slowly moving up. That was one of the items that I voted on the RTM to see that increase, so it's at a fair marketable wage so that we can afford to repair things in that building, which I'm happy to see are finally happening. But once again, that is why I support, has nothing to do with the public safety concern. I fully support it. I think that this is something that we can support them halfway at, and I feel comfortable with the 50%.
Counselor Baumgartner.
And I'd just like to, in a lot of other towns, EMS and ambulance are a function of government. In this town, it's not. We don't pay towards their pensions. We charge them for rent. So they're doing a public service for not just us, but for the public. So to me, this is the least we can do. And it's really not all that much compared to obviously what the council expended for the UPS system. So, yeah.
So we have two counselors who haven't spoken yet. Do either of you wish to speak before I go to repeat customers? Counselor Franco?
So we received a copy of their budget, their revenues and expenses, and from what I'm seeing here, it's basically there is no profit. Their revenues and their expenses are basically the same. And if they have money in the bank, possibly, maybe that money would be saving up for something. It might not just be slush fund, but maybe backup money that they need to have, just as we, as a town, have a savings account as well. And maybe they're going to use some of those funds for something else, possibly an ambulance in the future. So I understand we received this information at 5:30 this evening, so I wasn't really able to review all of it thoroughly, and it also came with a lease, and I was not aware that another counselor was requesting all of this. It didn't come from town information that this was all being requested for me to be prepared for that, because we had voted on this. And I thought we had an agreement that this is what they voted on, and it was going to be moved forward the way it was. We don't usually have such discussions, I guess you would say, in town council meetings, because it's usually taken care of by the time it gets here, which also doesn't give opportunity for any of them to be in attendance to speak for that.
He's here.
There's, I'm just saying, he is here, Brian Kiley is not here. There are other people, I mean, we didn't give them an opportunity to say, we want you here to talk and discuss this as well. So I also think this is a public safety issue, and I understand that they are a nonprofit organization, but also I think we still have responsibility to maintain and make sure that our residents are safe and that they can respond to calls. And I think it's the least we can do. Thank you.
Counselor Schmidt.
I do feel that we need to clarify that amount in the bank account, because that, those amounts are already certified for other uses. I'm sure that the savings accounts were not 422,000, but one of them is 124,000 in the general fund, and 52,000, then there is savings of 160,000 in Groton, Chelsea Groton, and 84,000 at Charter Oak. But I think this is for the purchase of equipment, because the ambulances do get old, they do get tired, they want to recertify, and they do need to certainly have proper equipment. They need to have different types of mattresses, so that when people are on that mattress, as I was, you aren't bouncing up and down, up and down, up and down, and you may have a broken neck. So I think it becomes critical to have the proper equipment, and that is what this funding represents, monies that are put aside for replacement of equipment.
Thank you. Mr. Kanicki is here from Groton Ambulance. Did you wish to address any of the comments, sir?
Where do I start? Thank you. First off, for clarification, Mystic River Ambulance does receive money from the town of Groton. They also receive money from the town of Stonington. So they get twice as much as we do, in theory, and we do twice as many calls for service that they do. So that's number one. Number two, in order to be a certified EMS service, you have to have 4 to 6 months of operating expenses on hand in case there's a government shutdown, which we have already established and had. That money is so that I can still provide the service to the residents regardless if they have Medicare, if they have Medicaid, anything. So when the government shuts down, I'm still responsible to pay my employees that money. So the money is not there just to have in case we need something. That's there per requirement by the state of Connecticut. If a new organization was to try to be established, they can't even apply unless they have that buffer of money. So that money, although it looks like a very impressive amount, is not. The cost to run an ambulance company is $75,000 to $100,000 a month with salary for the amount of service that we provide to the town of Groton for $52,000 a year. We go out to every resident that calls for service. We pick them up if they need to be picked up. We put them in bed if they need to be put in bed. We get no money from that whatsoever. That is a service that is given to every resident. So that elderly man that you spoke to, he is probably, more than likely, unfortunately, going to be using our service. And we are going to provide that service professionally and courteously without any charge to him. If he falls and his wife can't help him up, they call us. And for your cell phone, the Town of Groton Emergency Center has to worry about 9 fire departments, 2 ambulance companies, and a paramedic service. Every time the power goes out, their phones light up. They don't have the time to call every department by cell phone and say, you have a call. They are already taxed. They have to push the button, and we have to get there as soon as possible to render aid. The generator, when we took over the building in 1975, the transfer switch technology was not there. Our main concern was the mold and the water leaks and the health problems that we were having in the building. We have worked with the town to get those fixed. The town, I believe, had $20,000, $28,000 this past budget year. Groton Ambulance itself has put in over $60,000 into the town building. We get nothing from that. If we were to move and get our own building, you just got $60,000, and so did that old man, got $60,000 of free renovations to that building to bring it up to standard codes. We were living in deplorable conditions. My employees were getting sick. There was not even ambulances available to respond to the people. We give free car seat checks at the library and at the senior center. We stand by the band concert that's coming up. We stand by at a christening. We stand by every football game. We don't charge. We've been very frugal with our money, which is why we have the $422,000, because we are required to. If you look at the numbers, whatever we come in goes right back out. And we have not only improved our service, but we went from only being required to have one ambulance, at times we staff 3. We are getting more mutual aid calls to Mystic, to New London, anywhere else, because they know that we have the crews and we are there ready to serve. If we're delayed because we don't know about a call, if there's a call while we're out, we can't get back in our building because the doors won't open. This is a public safety issue. If that little old man that you talk to is laying on the floor and there's no power, how can I respond?
Thank you, Mr. Konicki. Are there counselors that have comments? Counselor Zepari.
First of all, I appreciate your comments about the services you offer. I can only counter that I served as the team physician for the Fitch football team for 14 years, and I was on the field for every home football game. And I used to see the Groton ambulance would come and stay through the first half, but at halftime they left. So the second half they did not cover. There are things like that that are half measures that concern me, but that's not related to this particular thing. You have, I think your operating account has, what, $120,000 in it? And do you have any outstanding bills that haven't been paid?
Payroll, 52,000.
I'm sorry?
Payroll.
No, you have a payroll of 52,000, that comes up, and you have a continued cash flow from the billings that you've done, do you not?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So you would be, it's obvious that you would be capable of paying the 4,000 plus that you had negotiated with our town manager before, is that right?
I would not consider it negotiations. I had asked Bob Charette from the town if he still had money left in his renovation budget. I was told no. I had contacted the town manager and said, this is really a critical, mission critical item for us. There's hurricane season coming up. This is what happened. I don't want to have that liability on us again if I don't answer the call.
Okay. Now, wait a minute. Could I just interrupt you for a minute? The thing I'm concerned about is that when we had a committee of the whole meeting, it was presented to us that the ambulance company would pay half and the town would pay the other half. Was that something you did not agree to in the first place? That's something that was fabricated as it was presented to us in the Carroll meeting?
Excuse me, Counselor Zepari, I don't believe it was a fabrication. I believe that was the agreement that was brought to us originally, but I
Okay.
prefer-
Who was the agreement between?
The agreement was made by town staff with Groton Ambulance.
So there was an agreement between Groton Ambulance and the town staff that the Groton Ambulance would pay half for the new switch?
That was the resolution that was given to us.
Yes.
That was a proposal that was provided to us, correct?
Okay, so that was an agreement that had been established, and then there was some gratuitous outpouring of sentiment that someone said we should pay it all. I think we stick with our agreements. I think you do have enough money that if you really wanted to, you could pay for this thing yourself. But at the very least, you can stick with the agreement we made.
Thank you, Councilor Zepari. Thank you, Mr. Konicki. I appreciate your coming up and speaking for us.
Thank you.
We've all had a chance to speak on this item, and we have an amendment on the floor. The amendment is the resolved as written with the exception of the dollar amount changing to $4,322.50.
The Groton, taking up Groton responsibility.
Striking the last whereas. You have that written down?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So I will call for a vote on the First Amendment, which strikes the last whereas and changes the dollar amount to $4,322.50. All those in favor, please raise your hand and keep them raised so I can write this down, please. Councilors Bordelon and Zepari. All those opposed, please raise your hand and keep them raised so I can write this down. Baumgartner, Parker, Franco, Heed, Granatowski, and Schmidt. And abstentions, 0. So that fails. 2 in favor, 6 opposed, 0 abstentions. Do you have the names, Madam Clerk? So we are back to the original motion, and I would like to make an amendment to strike the last whereas, please. So the resolution would read as is, except for the last whereas, which is the responsibility of the town of Groton, would be stricken.
Second that.
Okay, so second amendment is striking the whereas. Granatowski moved, seconded by Heed. All those in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Bordelon and Zepari, abstentions? So we have Baumgartner?
No, I said aye.
I know. I'm doing, just go with me.
Oh, okay.
So I have the noes, I have to get the yeas. So Baumgartner, Parker, Franco, Heed, Granatowski, and Schmidt are the ayes. Bordelon and Zepari are the noes. Okay, so the resolution as amended passes.
Right.
Do we need to vote the whole resolution, or are we good to go? All right, very good. All right, so we are back to par 4 lease extension on page 35, and I think we're back to Councilor Baumgartner. 2019-585. Thank you, gentlemen and lady. Good night. Councilor Baumgartner,
Find my
please.
bearings, I'm sorry.
Page 35 of the packet.
Resolution approving a lease with Par 4 Restaurant. Whereas the current restaurant concessionaire at the town-owned Chenecasset Golf Course has provided food service for over the past 30 years. And whereas the concessionaire, Par 4 Restaurant, has worked cooperatively with the golf course to conduct popular golfing events. And whereas the concessionaire and the town council have successfully negotiated a new lease for the period November 1st, 2019 through December 31st, 2029, now therefore be it resolved that the town council approves the lease of the premises at Chenecasset Golf Course for a term of November 1st, 2019 through December 31st, 2029, with the current concessionaire Anthony, Christina, and Peter Giannakopoulos, owners of the Par 4 Restaurant. So moved.
Second.
Moved by Baumgartner and seconded by Franco. And again, we've discussed this at length in Cow. So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So moved unanimously. And we are on to Roman numeral 11, other business. Is there any other business coming up with council? Councilor Franco?
I just want to talk to the town manager regarding, I saw something about the library was having a walkway replaced or fixed, a crosswalk of some sort. Do you know exactly where that's located?
I thought it was, I think this would be right in front where people are crossing.
I don't know if
By
it's
the
that
boxes,
one or
I
if
think.
it's down further, because I'm only questioning if it's from the memorial over to the grassland.
I'll
Because
find out.
that's
I'll
where
find
the
out and let you
Groton
know tomorrow.
Sale wanted to do some kind of improvements, and I just wanted to see if
I'll
those
find
would
out tomorrow.
conflict.
I'll
Thank
let
you.
know.
Councilor Baumgartner?
So the issue at Casino Road, you had mentioned that town is looking to install like an asphalt swale.
Right.
Was there any exploration as to using kind of natural, building or installing a bioswale?
There's no land there for us to do
Yeah.
it, that's part of the problem. And the
You can
engineer happens,
excavate.
and the engineer we worked with thought this might help, and basically just replacing asphalt with asphalt.
Okay.
And directing it, but there is talk of doing it eventually, but we'd have to have an easement through, it'd be a longer process, so it's just something we could do quickly to try to help.
I say we just get all the easements done and out of the way.
Yeah.
So.
Well, but they want some relief quick, that'll take longer. You're talking working with deep because it's coastal or tidal water, so it's not a quick process. So this will help them quicker.
Is it on this item?
Yes.
Counselor Franco?
I just don't know what a swell is.
It's just going to direct the water. It's going to
Swale.
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 Yeah,
Kind of like
basically
a
it's gonna-
curve?
A swale,
That
like
would
a
channel the water.
vegetative swale would hold it, you direct it and hold it. This will direct it into where it should be going, kind of help cross.
So it's-
And keep it from
'cause it's
flowing where
cur-
it's not supposed to go, direct it where it could be better handled by the vegetation.
Okay.
So it's contoured asphalt,
So are we taking a part of that road out?
yes.
And
And the
we're-
neighbors are good with that. They've all been contacted, and there's an engineer that happens to, do you remember him? He's all for it.
Okay, so I don't know what they're called, but something under the road that the water can flow through?
Right, that would take deep permits, and this is something we can do quickly to help them in
Okay.
the meantime.
All right, gotcha.
That is under the culvert.
Culvert, sorry,
Yes.
thank you.
Counselor
there.
Parker, and then I want to say something, so don't move to adjourn. Counselor Parker?
The Fall Festival is this Saturday from 11 to 4, correct? Or is it 11 to 5? Just want to remind everyone.
Thank you. And Mr. Burt, I wanted to talk about getting the Resilience and Sustainability Task Force back before us, now that the chair is back in town.
I'll
So
give it Sal. Yeah, he's supposed to call me tomorrow on something else.
They're supposed to be here on
anyways.
the 24th, and then people were out of town, so I'd like to get them on the agenda soon, please. Madam Clerk?
Just want to remind people, and I don't know if you know, but I-95, the Gold Star Bridge, south side, in the evening will be limited on lanes. So that's supposed to be just a few weeks, but we'll just see.
Very good. Seeing no other business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Moved by Parker, seconded by Baumgartner. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We are adjourned at 8:15. Have a good night.